My name is Ethan Walker, and I am 17 years old, and I thought the biggest moment of my life would be getting my driver's license or graduating high school. But everything changed the night my grandfather won the lottery and almost lost his life. Because of it, I still remember the way the numbers glowed on his laptop screen late at night as I sat on the couch pretending to scroll my phone while secretly watching him double-check again and again. He whispered the numbers out loud: 7, 14, 23, 31, 42, 49, and his hands started shaking. I had never seen my grandpa shake before. He was calm, serious, the kind of man who fixed things instead of breaking down. Then he looked at me and said, "Ethan, I think I just won more money than anyone in our family has ever seen." The next morning, the house felt different, like the air itself was buzzing. My mom hugged him, cried, laughed, and called my sister Veronica, who lived in Denver with her husband Brian. They decided to celebrate at an expensive restaurant downtown, one of those places you see on Instagram. But never think you will step into. Grandpa invited me too, said he wanted his lucky charm with him. I didn't know at the time that luck was the only thing keeping him alive. At dinner, everything looked perfect: golden lights, soft music, people smiling, champagne glasses clinking. Brian kept smiling too wide, like his face was stuck. That way he talked about investments, houses, vacations, like the money already belonged to him. Grandpa stayed polite but quiet, watching, listening. When my sister and Brian stepped away to take a phone call, a man in a chef jacket walked toward our table. He looked terrified. His hands were shaking worse than my grandpa's had been the night before. He leaned in and whispered, "Sir, I need to show you something, please." He pulled out a tiny glass vial filled with clear liquid. I didn't understand what I was seeing, but I will never forget the way my grandpa's face changed. It went from warm to stone cold in half a second. "Someone paid me to put this in your food tonight," the chef whispered. My heart started pounding so loud I thought everyone could hear it. Grandpa asked one question in a calm voice. Who? The chef showed him a photo on his phone. It was Brian, my sister's husband, the man who had just toasted to family and future. I felt sick. My grandpa told me later that years ago he worked in toxicology, studying poisons for criminal cases, and the smell from that vial told him everything. He told the chef to stay calm and bring the food like nothing was wrong. I didn't know what was happening, but I trusted my grandpa. When my sister and Brian came back, Brian reached for sauce like he always did. That was when my grandpa moved. He poured the poison into Brian's sauce right in front of me, so fast no one noticed. Then he smiled. He waited. Brian covered his steak in the sauce. My sister laughed. Then my grandpa spoke. "Brian, did you know poison always leaves a trace?" The color drained from Brian's face. My sister froze. The chef stood watching. Security cameras were rolling. Police were already on the way. That was the moment I learned something terrifying. Money does not change people. It shows you who they really are. And I was about to find out just how far betrayal could go. The restaurant went silent in a way I had never experienced before, like every sound had been vacuumed out of the room, and all that remained was my heartbeat crashing in my ears. Brian did not touch his food after that. He sat frozen, staring at my grandpa like he was seeing a ghost that had learned how to talk. My sister Veronica kept asking, "What is going on? Why is everyone staring?" But no one answered her. 2 security guards appeared near the entrance, pretending to be guests, but I could tell they were waiting for a signal. My grandpa leaned back in his chair, calm, steady, like he was giving a lecture. Instead of facing a man who tried to kill him, he said, "Brian, you look nervous. Maybe you should tell my grandson." Why? Brian laughed too fast, too loud. Said, "This is some kind of joke, right, old man?" Pa shook his head slowly and slid the vial across the table toward him. The chef stepped forward and said I was paid to poison the food tonight. Veronica stood up her chair, scraping loudly across the floor, and shouted, "Brian, tell me this is not true." Brian finally spoke in a whisper, saying, "You do not understand. I had no choice." That was when the police walked in. Everything happened fast. After that, handcuffs, flashing voices, shouting, diners filming on their phones. Brian was dragged away, still yelling that he loved Veronica, that he was sorry. She collapsed into my arms, crying and shaking and asking me why this was happening. I had no answers at the station. My grandpa gave a full statement. He explained his background, his suspicions, his decision to turn the plan around so evidence would be undeniable. The chef confessed everything: the payment, the instructions, the promise that it would look natural. I sat in a plastic chair all night watching adults break apart in ways I never thought possible. In the days that followed, the story exploded everywhere. Lottery winner survives poisoning attempt. Husband arrested. Family betrayal. Reporters camped outside our house. My school friends treated me like I was suddenly famous. But I felt anything but. Veronica stopped eating, barely sleeping. She kept replaying memories, looking for signs she missed me, while evidence kept piling up: bank transfers, messages, surveillance footage from the restaurant. Brian had debts, gambling losses, loans he never told anyone about. He thought killing my grandpa was easier than admitting he had ruined everything. The trial started months later. I testified, even though my hands shook the whole time. I told the jury what I saw, how Brian smiled, how the vial looked, how fear changed his face. The chef testified too, his voice cracking as he admitted he almost destroyed a family when they played Brian's recorded confession. The courtroom felt heavier than gravity. He admitted he planned it for weeks, studied my grandpa's routine, learned about toxins online. He never once said my sister's name. When the verdict came, guilty on all counts, my sister did not cry. She just stared straight ahead, like something inside her had finally shut down. Brian was sentenced to decades in prison. Afterward, my grandpa took us outside and hugged us both. He told me, "Ethan, remember this moment for the rest of your life." I nodded, not knowing what he meant. He said, "The most dangerous people are not strangers in the dark. They are the ones who smile at your table." I thought it was over. I thought the worst had passed. I was wrong, because months later, we discovered something even more shocking about Brian that would change everything again. I thought prison walls meant the end of Brian's reach, but I learned very quickly that some people can still hurt you even when they are locked away. 3 months after the sentencing, my grandpa called me into his study late at night. He looked tired in a way I had never seen before, not scared, just worn down, like a man carrying too many truths. He told me, "Ethan, there is more you need to know, and I wish you never had to hear it." He showed me a folder thick with papers, letters, bank statements, legal notes. Everything Brian had done was bigger than we thought. The poisoning was not the beginning, it was the final step. Brian had been moving money long before the lottery, small amounts at first, then larger ones hidden through shell accounts, using Veronica's name without her knowing. He forged signatures, lied to banks, and took loans against future assets that did not exist. Yet the lottery just accelerated his plan. He expected my grandpa to die quietly. He expected the money to fall into Veronica's hands and threw her into his control. But that was not the worst part. My grandpa told me Brian had taken out a life insurance policy on him months before the lottery win, a massive one listed as an investment partnership agreement, legal on paper, deadly in intention. Veronica collapsed when She found out, she screamed, she threw things, she cried until she could not breathe. She kept saying, I loved him. I trusted him. How could he plan my father's death? Like a business deal, watching my sister break. Like that changed something inside me. I realized how evil does not always look evil sometimes. It looks like a husband making coffee in the morning. The investigation reopened. Federal charges were added: fraud, conspiracy, attempted murder. For financial gain, Brian stopped talking to everyone. No letters, no calls, like he had erased himself. But then something strange happened. My grandpa received a letter from prison addressed only to him. No return address. Inside was a single sentence written in shaky handwriting: you think you won, but you only survived. That sentence haunted me. Grandpa said nothing, but I could tell he was thinking deeply. He started reviewing his past cases, old enemies, people he had testified against. He believed Brian might not have acted alone. And then the chef called. He said he had not told police everything. He said there was another man, a middleman, someone who contacted Brian and helped source the talks, and someone who knew my grandpa's background and wanted him gone for years. That was when fear returned to our house. Real fear, not courtrooms or headlines, but the feeling that someone unseen was still watching. Police reopened interviews. Phones were traced, emails pulled from deleted folders. The name surfaced slowly: Marcus Hale, a former pharmaceutical consultant, exposed by my grandpa years ago. A man who lost everything after my grandpa's testimony. Marcus had motive, money, knowledge, and connections, and he was free one night. I woke up to voices downstairs. Police again, this time not for protection, but warning. They believed Marcus was planning something else, not poison, something louder, something final. My grandpa refused to hide. He said, I spent my life exposing truth. I will not run now. I wanted to scream at him. I wanted him safe. I wanted my normal life back. Instead, I sat awake every night, staring at the door, listening to every sound, waiting. And then one evening, as we sat eating dinner, the lights went out. Total darkness, silence, until a phone buzzed on the table, a message from an unknown number. It said, you should have died when you had the chance. The message stayed on the screen, glowing in the dark like a threat carved into stone. My grandpa did not panic. He simply locked his phone and told us to remain calm. Police arrived within minutes because we were already under watch. They confirmed the power outage was not random. A nearby transformer had been sabotaged. Someone wanted us blind and scared. That night, we were moved to a safe location, a plain house. No photos, no memories, just protection. I slept on a couch with a police radio crackling beside me. Every sound felt like a footstep. The next day, investigators confirmed Marcus Hale had gone underground. His accounts were drained. His apartment emptied. Cameras showed him leaving the city days earlier. He was planning something, and running was part of it. My grandpa met with federal agents. They believed Marcus wanted revenge, not money. The poisoning was supposed to be quiet. Now he wanted spectacle, a public ending. I was angry, not just scared, angry that someone could destroy lives from pure hatred. I asked my grandpa why Marcus hated him so much. He said years ago, Marcus approved a drug knowing it caused heart failure. My grandpa exposed him in court. People died. Marcus blamed him for losing everything. The agents said Marcus had been tracking our movements using leaked data. Someone had sold information. Trust was gone. Everyone was a question mark. Days passed. Then another message arrived, this time with coordinates, a place. My grandpa recognized instantly the old pharmaceutical conference hall where Marcus had once been arrested. The message said, come finish what you started. Police wanted to ignore it, set a trap. But my grandpa said Marcus wanted him there, and if he did not go, someone else would get hurt. Against every rule, A controlled operation was approved. I was not supposed to be there, but I hid in the back of an unmarked van. I needed to see this end. The hall was dark, abandoned, echoing with the past. My grandpa walked in alone, wearing a wire. Marcus appeared from the shadows, thinner eyes, burning with obsession. He accused my grandpa of ruining his life. My grandpa replied, "You ruined your own by choosing profit over people." Marcus laughed and revealed a device, not bomb, but a release mechanism, a container of airborne toxin, enough to kill everyone inside. Police moved. Marcus hit the trigger. Nothing happened. My grandpa had already swapped the device earlier using information from the chef. Marcus froze. Realization hit him like a wall. He tried to run. He did not make it far. Agents tackled him. The device was secured. Lives saved. I watched from the van, shaking, crying, breathing for the first time in days. Marcus was arrested, this time with no chance of escape. Back home weeks later, the house felt quieter, safer, but changed. My grandpa told me, "Ethan, some people spend their lives trying to destroy others. The only defense is truth and patience." I thought it was over. I wanted it to be over. Then my sister received a letter from Brian. It contained one line only: "You think Marcus was the master. Mind, you have no idea." The letter sat on the kitchen table, untouched for hours, like it might explode if anyone opened it again. Veronica read that single sentence over and over until her hands started shaking. "You think Marcus was the mastermind. You have no idea." My grandpa finally spoke and said Brian would not write that unless he believed it, which meant one thing: there was someone else, someone we still had not seen. Police reopened everything again. Every trance, for every message, every phone call Brian ever made, patterns started to appear. Late night calls from a prepaid phone, short-coded conversations, payments broken into pieces small enough to avoid alarm. Whoever was behind it knew the system better than Brian ever did. The trail led somewhere none of us expected, to the lottery itself. An internal auditor from the Lottery Commission was arrested in another state for unrelated fraud. When investigators compared notes, my grandpa's name appeared. That auditor had accessed my grandpa's ticket verification file before it was public, meaning someone knew about the win. Before we did, that person fed the information forward to Brian, to Marcus, and possibly to others. Suddenly, the story changed. This was not just betrayal. It was orchestration. My grandpa realized he had been a target from the moment those numbers were printed. The poison attempt was just one method. If that failed, there would be another. Police placed us under full protection again, but this time my grandpa made a different choice. He decided to go public. He held a press conference and laid out everything: the attempt, the arrests, the corruption. He said plainly, "I am alive because someone talked, and because I refused to act afraid." He exposed the lottery insider live on camera. Within hours, arrests followed, phones seized, accounts frozen. The network collapsed fast once light hit it. Brian stopped being important. Marcus became just another angry man. The real power had been hidden behind desks and badges. Weeks later, the final indictment dropped. Multiple people charged: conspiracy, fraud, attempted murder for profit. It was over for real. This time the danger faded slowly, like a storm moving off the coast. One night, I sat with my grandpa on the porch. He asked me what I learned from all this. I said that money is dangerous. He smiled and shook his head. Money is neutral. People are dangerous. He told me, "Ethan, never confuse kindness with weakness, and never assume family means loyalty." Months later, life started to feel normal again. School friends, quiet dinners. But I was different, older inside. I had seen how close evil could sit to you and smile. 1 year later, Brian was sentenced again, longer. No appeals left. Marcus received life. The lottery insider vanished into federal prison. Justice moved slowly, but it moved on the anniversary of the win. My grandpa handed me a sealed envelope. Inside was a letter and a college fund statement. He said, "I trust you to use knowledge, not fear." I hugged him tighter than I ever had. I thought the story had ended. I really did, until my phone buzzed. That night, unknown number one message. There is always someone left who knows the truth. That message stayed with me longer than any other. There is always someone left who knows the truth. I showed it to my grandpa the next morning. He read it once, then handed the phone back to me and said, "Sometimes the last shadow is just an echo." But I could tell even he was not fully convinced. Police traced the number. It led nowhere. Burner phone, dead end. Weeks passed. Nothing happened. No threats, no movement. Life kept going. That was when I understood something important. Fear does not need action to survive it. Feeds on memory. Graduation came. I stood on stage wearing my cap and gown while my grandpa and sister watched from the crowd. They smiled, they clapped, but behind those smiles was everything we survived. After the ceremony, my grandpa took me aside. He said, "Ethan, I am going to tell you something because you are old enough now." He admitted that years ago he had suspected corruption inside the system, but never imagined how deep it went. He said the last message might have been from someone trying to hold power through intimidation. Or it might have been nothing at all. The truth is you never really know. When danger is gone, you just learn how to live anyway. Veronica started a new life, new city, new job. She stopped blaming herself. That took the longest. My grandpa donated most of the lottery money, research scholarships, victim funds, whistleblower protection. He said money should repair more than it destroys. As for me, I chose a different path. I decided to study law and forensic ethics, not because I was angry, but because I had seen what silence could cost. On my 18th birthday, my grandpa gave me one final gift, a notebook. Inside were notes from his career cases. He never talked about margins. Filled with warnings and lessons. The first page said, "This truth does not make you safe. It makes you necessary." Years later, when people ask me about the lottery story, I tell them this: the money was never the real prize. Survival was. Knowledge was. And family, the real kind, not the smiling kind, mattered more than anything. Sometimes late at night, I still think about that dinner, the lights, the vial, the smile that almost ended everything, and I remember how close we came to losing it all. Then my phone buzzes, usually just a friend, a reminder that life goes on. But every time I see an unknown number, my heart still pauses, because once you learn how betrayal works, you never fully unlearn it. I am Ethan Walker. I was just a kid when all this started, and this is the story that taught me the most important lesson of my life. The real danger is not the poison on the table. It is the hand that believes you will never notice it.